And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
One of my favorite books that I have ever read in my entire life is Redwall by Brian Jacques. It's a great book. Then it has a huge series. I think there's like 15, 20 books. And the other books are decent. None have come close to capturing how good that original book was. Just about mice and badgers fighting. Well, this is kind of the same genre, although here it's people who have become mice, kind of, sort of, but I don't want to spoil too much of the story. Let's take an overlook at what this game is. It's a cooperative game in which players are working together to accomplish story goals. Here you go. The Hall of Mice and Mystics takes around this book here, Sorrow and Remembrance. This is a nice thick book. This is not the rule book. Instead, this is a scenario book. The scenario book starts with a prologue, a story, and then each chapter of the book, and there's 11 chapters, has a story and tells you objectives and tells you how to set the board up and what to do to meet the objectives. This is not something that one player hoards and doesn't show to anyone else. Instead, all players work together. So I'm going to do my best not to spoil that because there is a story. I do not think there's a problem with playing a scenario over again. It's not like the scenario is ruined for you forever, but it would be fun to see some of the surprises in this game. In the game, each player takes the control of a mouse, who is actually a transformed human. You'll have to read the story to find out more and why. The miniatures in this game are really nice. They're well detailed. I mean, I know a lot of people who are interested in the game for that alone. Now, when you take control of one of these mice, each of these mice has a stats on their card here, and they're pretty obvious. You have your attack dice. You have your defense that you'll roll. You have your lore. Then you have your move value. And then you have special abilities. And then you have hit points. And then you have what class you are. And you have a picture. It's very simple. And that's something that I'm going to be making a point of a lot during this game, is that this is not a very complicated game. After you pick this, you'll look, for example, here, this is a leader and a warrior, so you will look through a whole bunch of special cards, and maybe you'll pick you get to pick one of them. So, for example, I can pick this one, leader, give order, and for one cheese, I can use this ability. Instead of moving the mouse, choose a mouse on the same tile as this mouse. The chosen mouse may immediately perform one action. So you have different cards that you can pick depending on what class. Some of the cards are also going to come with specific equipment that they will have. For example, let's say you take Tilda, the healer. Well, she automatically comes with Tilda's mace. That is a weapon that she will come equipped with. The rest of the weapons and item cards are placed here on this board, and this is an important board of the game. I don't know that it needed to be this big, but it has the dreaded cheese wheel. We'll talk about that. It has the pages here. Each chapter will tell you to put the end on one of these pages. And then you'll be going through this, and you don't want to get to the end of this story before accomplishing your objectives. And then over here is an initiative track, and then over here are encounter cards. Now, we're not going to be able to go over every rule in the game, but I can give you some basics. On the player's turn, they have an objective that they have to complete. And different things may happen depending on what room they're in. But what players are going to essentially do on their turn is they're going to move and then take an action. Moving simply means rolling the die, and these dice have different symbols on them, but there's a little number in them that says 1 through 3. You'll take that number, add it to your move value, and that's how far you can move. Now, some of the things that I liked about this game I thought was neat was how adjacent tiles simply are adjacent. And if you're not sure adjacent tiles, you simply put your mouse on the two tiles, and if it can touch, the mouse touches both tiles and fits on both tiles, the base of the mouse, then you know they're adjacent. And that's very convenient, especially with some of that diagonal tiles in some of the rooms, and just the fact that it lets those rooms have some very thematic flavor to them. You can clamber up over things. Now, what mice are going to be doing as for their actions is sometimes they'll roll a die and do a search, which they can do once per room, and they'll draw a card. And these cards can be all sorts of things. They can have armor, like this button shield, or perhaps like this fish scale armor. Maybe they'll find special items like this mystic tome, or new weapons like a longbow. Sometimes, though, they'll turn over a card that isn't just a special. Hey, everyone, they get a cheese. Or treachery, something bad that can happen to them. Or a trick card that they can save later on. There's always a danger to searching, but usually it's something good that you can do. You can also try to explore a new tile, to go to a new room. Now, I just made up these tiles. No, this is not one of the rooms, but sometimes you'll go to another room and you'll draw another tile, put that tile there. But also, each room has a special spot on it. Let's see if we can focus up on that spot, where you can flip the tile. And basically here you're underground, and then you'll flip the tile, and now you will be above ground. And you can see here that you're in the kitchen. And then you will be moving around in the kitchen, and maybe something will happen there. And again, this is something I thought was really neat, how you can go from below ground to above ground, and it made sense. You're basically mice coming out of a hole in the ground. Now, a lot of what you'll be doing in the game is you'll be fighting rats and cockroaches and centipedes and spiders and all sorts of villainous creatures that are in the game. And again, these models are really cool, and they'll be moving and fighting each other. Fighting is very simple. It's done with combat. When it's your turn to attack, you'll roll attack dice. Every sword that you roll, if you're doing a melee attack, or arrow that you roll, if you're doing a range attack, does a damage. The defender then rolls defense dice, and they're trying to roll shields. Some of the sides of a die is a shield and a sword, so it's attack and or defense. If you roll cheese on your attack or defense, you'll get cheese, which you can use to level up, which gives you another ability card, or to use your ability cards. If the bad guys roll cheese, they will add cheese to this cheese wheel here. Now, adding cheese to the cheese wheel also happens if you sit in a room and there's no bad guys and you kind of just take your time. More cheese will be added to this cheese wheel. And when this cheese wheel is completely filled, a surge happens. Now, surge is a couple of things. One, it will move this marker down here up another page, which is bad. But secondly, it will have something happen in your room. Sometimes it's in a book. A specific thing will happen in your room when a surge happens. Otherwise, you'll draw an encounter card. And these encounter cards are neat because on them, it will tell you what creatures will attack that room depending on what page you are. So you can see page 1, 3 rats will come. On page 2, 5 greedy roaches. All the way up to page 6 or higher, then 3 elite rats will show up. So the farther you are in the story, the worse things are going to be. And so you're moving around, you're discovering new rooms, moving from room to room, accomplishing different goals. There's achievements your mice can get, and there are many other things that are going on. These initiative cards are used in combat. You just mix them up, put them there, and that shows you who goes. So for example, here Tilda would go first, then Colin, then the rats, then Nez, then Magnus, and the roaches. And if you kill someone off, their initiative card comes off. But what if you die? Yeah, that can happen. Well, then you're not really dead, you're just captured, which adds cheese to the cheese wheel, which isn't good, and you're off the board until the remainder of that round. If all the mice are captured, well, then the game's over, so you have to be careful for that, too. So that's basically it. I can't really give you a whole lot more detail. For one thing, there isn't a whole lot more detail involved in the game, but there are different weapons and things you can have, and different scenarios that you're going to go around in. And a lot of this game really focuses on the story. These aren't short little stories. They're fairly lengthy stories that are involved in the game, and it's your job to complete them. Now, we haven't played through all the different scenarios, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the story unfolds, but I really felt like there was a story. One of the things I like about this game is there's these little optional side quests. You go through the kitchen and you deal with the cook. The cat will show up occasionally, and you have to deal with a cat. A crow might show up and you have to avoid the crow. There's different things. There's even achievements you can get. And I'm still not on board with this whole achievement thing that people have going these days. But whatever. There's achievements. And they give you special abilities, which I do like. But let's get Melody's opinion. What do you think of the game?
I thought it was a lot of fun moving the mice around, trying to attack the other rats. Or spiders, centipedes, which are really freaky.
That's right. I'm afraid of that centipede, and I'm much bigger than it is. I couldn't imagine being a mouse.
Yeah.
And any game that lets me kill cockroaches, woo! One of the things we should talk about is the component quality. Do you think that it's nice pieces inside? I mean, it's amazing. The mouse models and the rat models and everything, they're really nice looking. The pieces, it's all, I mean, the boards are beautiful. The artwork, as I said, is very evocative. It's a neat design. One of the things I liked about the game was that it was very intuitive. It was very easy to play. It wasn't like, oh, I can't remember what chart I need to look at. No, you roll swords to hit, you roll arrows to hit, you roll shields to block, you roll cheese to get cheese. Your abilities made sense and the weapons were simple. There's no super ultra weapon that you're looking for. You just get some cool stuff and you go and you fight. Did you think fighting was fun, hard, what?
It was kind of like mediocre, but also the part that I kind of didn't like was the timing thing. I thought it just went like, the game I played, it went really like slow because of how well we did it, but if it...
Yeah, but it'd be really easy. So you're saying you don't like that it would go so fast and the game would be over. Well, there is that timing issue, and that makes you keep moving. This game is going to be compared quite a bit to Wrath of Shardline, Castle Ravenloft, Legends of Drizzt. Those games, it has that same feel to them, and you've played those. Did that feel kind of similar, where you went through and fought? Mm-hmm. But this one is different. I think this one has more story arc in it. It has, it's definitely simpler, and it just felt a bit more, I'm going to go back to that same word again, intuitive, where it just made sense how everything went. I was in the kitchen fighting things that I should be fighting in the kitchen. If there's any negative thing I would say about the game is I wish there was more monsters in it. I wish there was beetles and all kinds of cool little miniatures. There's only, I think, 4 or 5 different regular enemies. And that's not a bad thing. I'm a huge fan of variety, so I would have liked to see more. Any final thoughts?
Just that it's cute. I like it.
It's cute. And this is really going to be, I think, a good family game. This is a good way to dip your feet. Some people talk about using Mouse Guard as a way to get kids into role-playing games. I think this, incidentally, they have the same theme almost. This Mice and Mystics is the same way to get them into heavier board games, to get kids into playing a combat game. Instead of playing Dungeons and Dragons, the basic game, or Hero Quest, which are fun games, both of them, I think Mice and Mystics does a better job getting you into that with a much more inoffensive and non-generic theme. So that's Mice and Mystics.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.